Now, one person who knows only too well what it's like to live in the shadow of domestic violence is Martine. This was an environment that you grew up in at home.
Yeah, my mum had been abused as a child and she met my dad and he'd been abused as well. And they were kind of like these two sort of broken, damaged souls, if you like. And they met and it kind of, there was this electric chemistry between the two of them.
Yeah.
And my mum kind of mistook his obsession for love. Drugs and drink were involved with him and he would do the most terrible things and he wouldn't remember what he'd done. And he would be so sorry to begin with. And I would see this happen. And then once I was started to be affected by it physically, by my dad being used as a weapon against my mum, that was it. My mum kind of just saw clearly all of a sudden that she wasn't meant to be going through this. She wasn't asking for it in some way.
Yeah.
It wasn't her that was provoking it. And she said, you made me see the wood from the trees. And so we then moved all around the country. We had panic buttons. And then finally, when I was 9 years old, I went to the Old Bailey and I spoke to the judge about what happened to me, what happened to my mum. An injunction was put against him and he wasn't allowed, obviously, within a certain radius of me and my mum till I was 18.
Right.
I mean, that is it's a key thing you say there, because I think when you're in an abusive relationship, it becomes your normality.
Yeah.
And when you suddenly see your child being affected by it, it sort of shocks you into doing something about it.
I mean, even with all the history that my mum had had, and being abused herself, and not necessarily knowing morally what was right and what was wrong. You know, that was all very mixed up for her.
How young were you
when
when your dad started to sort of...
I was about 18 months when it began, and it took until I was 9 years old to be properly heard and to be...
But what sort of... I mean...
After.
Was he beating you at 18 months, or...?
No, but, I mean, he threatened me. He threatened my mum. He threatened to drop me over a balcony of our flats. We lived in, like, a Peabody estate in East London. And he threatened to sort of drop me over if she didn't do what he wanted her to do when he was high as a kite one day.
See, some people say, don't they, 'cause I've been in a relationship like that, they say, why didn't you just get out? Why didn't she just leave? But by that time, her self-worth had gone, hadn't it? And her self-confidence. So she must have been thinking that it was to do with her. The reason he was beating her.
And at the time, you do your best and you think, maybe I've provoked it. He says I bring it out in him when nobody else does. So and maybe it's us together. And then there was also this passion that the two of them shared. And she was very honest. She wrote a book and she said, you know, being honest, sometimes he would walk down, he was the most handsome, charming man, and he would walk down and my heart would go in my mouth some days and I didn't know if it was fear or because I was just so besotted with him.
Yeah.
And I think that was really honest of her to say that.
As well, charming men, and we've talked about that before, haven't we, Jane? Like that, and when there's so much passion involved, it's not only the fear; it's also the no one else. Not only do you provoke, you make me behave that way, but no one will love you like I will.
Exactly.
You know, if you leave, you will never find someone like me who will love you like I will.
She always felt so lucky to have him, because women would drop at his feet. And yet he wanted her.
It's a roller coaster, isn't it? It's sort of, you know, a lot of people mistake that sort of excitement for actually for love or for passion. But
even without the domestic abuse, you can mistake the more dramatic relationships in your 20s or something as love, when it's not. It's more lust and passion.
Or
and
incompatibility.
Also, him, how sorry he probably always felt. And showed that kind of, you know, and I will never do it again. And crying.
And I do think in his own weird, mad way, he was in his head in love with my mum. But his idea of love was completely different. And he didn't know any different.
It should work out. We should also point out it is a two-way thing as well. A lot of men in this country suffer from domestic violence, and in a way they're even less likely to come forward because people go, well, what do you mean you're abused by a woman?
They feel like it emasculates them.
And I think women are the same. I mean, I had a friend years and years ago who was in a very violent relationship, and we were close, and I just didn't know. And then she produced once they'd split up, she produced all this photographic evidence. And I said, why didn't you leave? And she said, because when you're in it, your self-esteem, as you said, is so low, and you think, well...
And you believe it's your fault.
And also, she said, I felt ashamed. I didn't want to say to my friends this had happened to me.
And also, it's fear. I mean, the fear takes over completely.
Is that how you felt, Sherry?
Yeah, totally. And you don't know how to get out.
And you don't remember some of these men kill these women. And these women end up dead.
So you can, if you stay, you'll make them like you. You know, they'll begin to like you if you do what they want.
And in fact, it doesn't. As a capable woman, you think that you can fix it. I can fix this, I can fix that, surely I can fix this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the love is there, maybe I'll never be able to replace that. If I can just fix this, everything will be fine.
And I think there's a part of all women that feel that. If only I could do this, then not only would he not do that, but
he'll love me more.
And also, have to remember, men who behave that way, they're not like it all the time. And actually, when they're being incredibly kind and they're truly, their focus is on
Especially
you.
outside the house.
Especially outside the house.
other
You
people.
feel like the most precious person in the
And
world.
they're usually
But
quite charming men.
Your mum's in a very happy relationship.
Yeah, my mum's
isn't
now
she?
moved on and in a wonderful relationship. She's really happy and she's learned what a healthy love is. But what I would like to say is that, you know, the children in this are so innocent. And if anybody is going through this at home, please just talk to somebody, talk to a teacher, talk to a friend. You shouldn't be living in fear and you haven't done anything wrong.
For more Loose Women action, click here. And I'd subscribe if I were you. It's totally free and it means you'll be kept up to date with new videos and exclusive YouTube content.
It's quite frightening because then when I was finally told that I had ME, I was like, well, what's the cure? What do I take? And they said, well, we don't know. We don't know how we cure this. And it's the most awful illness. People just think that you're just tired and people think you're just lazy.
For people who don't know what ME is, how would you describe it?
I would describe it personally, because there's a lot of people out there that get very ferocious about what it is, but personally for me, I feel like it's kind of a malfunction of your body. It's almost like a virus in a computer.